Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be solving equations, which you have done plenty of. But the kicker here, today we have to leave our answers in radical form. All right, we're going to get started. Also, something I want to mention, you guys, whenever we have a radical, our answers have to be used as a plus or minus. We're going to have a positive answer and a negative answer. So, we'll get started on example number 1. We're going to do 4 examples. Make sure you get all 4 in your notes, please, okay? So, first thing we're going to do here is we're going to add 4 to both sides. And we're going to get 5x squared equals 100. Now we have to get this x squared by itself, so we're going to take both sides and divide by 5, and we're going to get x squared equals 20. Now, to get rid of this square right here, we're going to take the square root of both sides. So x is going to equal, now, so I mentioned earlier, we have to put plus or minus. We're going to have a positive answer and a negative answer. Plus or minus the square root of 20. Now, we can only leave this answer if there's not a perfect square that can go into it. But we know there's a perfect square that can go into 20, so we're going to break it down. We can set 4 and 5, so our answer is going to be x equals plus or minus square root of 4 is 2 square roots of 5. Alright, example number 1 done. Moving on. Here we go, example number 2. We need to solve for x squared, so we're going to add 6 on both sides. We're going to get negative 2x squared equals negative 84. Now, to get x squared by itself, we're going to divide both sides by negative 2. X squared equals 42. Now here, to get our x all by itself, we're going to take the square root of both sides. Now x equals plus or minus square root of 42. Now I have to go through. Alright, 4 doesn't go into 42, 9 doesn't go into 42, 16 doesn't go into 42, 25 doesn't go into 42, 36 doesn't go into 42 evenly. So since none of those perfect squares goes into 42, this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be our answer. X equals plus or minus the square root of 42. Alright, example number 3. First thing we have to do, x squared by itself, that's our goal. So we're going to subtract 33 from both sides. We're going to get 5x squared equals negative 30. Then we're going to divide both sides by 5. And I am going to get x squared equals negative 6. Now we're going to do this, we're going to plug this into our calculator. If we do this, you guys, if I take the square root of both sides, I want you to do this. You need to plug this in your calculator so you can see what this is going to look like. And you're going to get, it's going to come up and it's going to be like, error, it doesn't work. There's nothing working here. Or it might say system error or doesn't work or anything like that. Whenever we see something like that, it's because we cannot take a square root of a negative number, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't work. Okay? So what we're going to write is no solution because it doesn't work. If we try it in our calculator all day long, it's not going to work. So for anything like this, we're going to write no solution. So anytime we have a square root of a negative number, it's going to be no solution. Make sure you make a note of that. So if we take the square root of a negative number, it's going to be no solution. Alright, last example. Here we go. Oh, this one, we added a little bit to this one. First thing we have to do, get rid of this plus 6, so we're going to subtract 6 on both sides. 3x squared all over 14 equals 6. Now we're going to multiply both sides by 14. These are going to cancel. I'm going to be left with 3x squared equals 6 times 14 is 84. We're going to come back through. We're going to divide both sides by 3. And x squared is going to equal 28. Now, since 28 is a positive number, it's going to work for us. So we can take the square root of both sides. So x squared equals plus or minus square root of 28. 28, we can break this down. Perfect square that goes into 28 is 4. 4 times 7 is 28. So x squared equals plus or minus, can't forget that, 2 square roots of 7. That is our last example, ladies and gentlemen, but I do need you to write this down. Things to remember, okay? First thing we have to do, isolate that x squared. Get it all by itself. Then we have to take the square root. Alright, when we're taking the square root, we need to simplify the radical. No decimal answers. Okay, it has to be written as a radical. Always remember, no negatives in the square root. If we get a negative inside, oops, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, got a little bell there. If we get a negative inside the square root, it's going to be no solution. Alright, no solution. And always remember, you have to put that plus or minus. We're going to have two answers, not just one. Alright, make sure you get this down. Make sure you had all 4 examples down. And that is all I have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful, fabulous day, and I will see you later. Bye.